What was your first reaction when your husband got deployed?
Well, the first time he was deployed was in 2003, and we'd just gotten married. So it was, it wasn't a surprise because I had kind of known it was going to happen. And I wasn't too concerned about his safety because that was a peacekeeping mission. So the war in the former Yugoslavia was done. He was going part of the National Guard, and it was more of a peacekeeping mission where they were just trying to keep the sides from, getting back involved in the conflict. I was a little concerned about his safety he drove around a lot. He was in logistics, and so he visited a lot of different places. And so I'd be concerned about, if they hadn't gotten all the roadside bombs and that kind of thing.
Okay. Did you have any kids at the time?
The first time he was deployed in 2003, we didn't have any kids.
Okay.
And then he was deployed in 2010 to Iraq, and we had a 3-year-old, and then I was pregnant with our son at the time.
So how hard was it for you, and how much did it change your life when you got deployed?
Well, the first time wasn't. It was hard because we were just recently married, and you want to just spend that time together and all that. It was really tough the second time because I had, a toddler, a preschooler, and then I was pregnant, and so I had to go through, all the pregnancy, and then that time he was in Iraq. So, I knew that the job that he was doing there was not, he mostly stayed on base for what he was doing. He was working with computers and logistics, and he didn't have to leave the base very often. And at that time, the conflict, the war in Iraq was winding down a little bit more.
Okay.
But, he didn't really tell me everything of what was necessarily going on. He carried a gun everywhere, and but yeah, it was really hard the second time because having children, and I had to go from having a partner to help me with things, and then I had to take care of all the bills. I had to make sure the snow was removed. I had to make sure
all the
taking
chores.
care of everything when you're used to having
someone to do it.
Help you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when he was gone, did he ever write to you, or how did you guys communicate?
Yeah, we Skype. The first time, you probably can't believe this, but there wasn't really Skype that much in 2003.
I believe it.
Yeah, but we did do a lot of instant messaging and that kind of thing, and some old school letters. I would send packages, that kind of thing. And then when he was in 2010, we Skyped and did some letter writing and some emailing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when he came home for the first time, was he changed, or?
Yeah, he was changed. It's kind of hard to put into words, but some of the changes were good in that because he'd gone on this peacekeeping mission. I think he felt really proud of the mission, really proud of what he'd done. But at the same time, he had to hear a lot of the atrocities that happened to Muslim women who were raped and killed, and he visited a couple sites where it was pretty tough to hear the stories from the people because he was out amongst the people more. And when he came back from Iraq, it was really hard on our marriage the whole time that he was gone. And when he came back, it was, I'd used to being a single parent then. Mm-hmm. I made all the decisions as far as disciplining kids. My son wasn't born yet, but my daughter, I had sort of just taken over everything. And then even small things that you might not think were a big deal, like going through the mail, just making appointments for kids, taking care of the car. I had gotten used to doing all that. And when he came back, it was really hard to negotiate
the
roles again. And also he didn't tell me everything that he saw. The types of stories that he would tell me from when he was in Iraq were more about the friendships, and the guys that he was with and different things like that, and not so much about what he'd seen or that. I do remember he came home for the birth of our son. He was able to come home for 2 weeks, and he was there the week before he was born. And I remember in the hospital, there was so I'd already had my son, Soren, and somebody dropped something, and it made this really loud noise, and he kind of startled.
Okay.
which I know sounds like, well, yeah, most people would startle, but he really said after that he was so used to like the duck and, I don't want to say duck and cover, because that's not really, but you know what I mean, like having to really be on guard, and he had his gun with him all the time when he was there. So that was the readjustment, and it turned out to not go real well for us, because we ended up getting a divorce. Not just because of that, you know, there's a lot of things that go into relationships, but he came back, and I changed a lot, he changed a lot. It's kind of hard not to when you're away from your spouse for that amount of time. Okay. And then adding the stress of a war conflict zone to it.
All right, so you're saying that he did change mentally a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I mean, I don't want to share too
that's
many
fine.
personal things necessarily, but a lot of our, you know, we had a lot of similar political views prior to the first deployment, and also prior to the second deployment when he went to Iraq. But, you know, he came back really, I don't want to say like, very patriotic, which is fine. But, you know, we did end up having some varying political views. And part of it was, you know, based on his experiences. I can't remember what your question was, Alejandro, but just...
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So, you going through this experience, how would you feel if your child had to go to war?
We've talked about this a lot, that, you know, the way he was in the National Guard, and there were a lot of benefits for him personally through the National Guard. I mean, he went in right out of high school. He got, you know, he was part of the Guard, and it helped pay for a lot of his education, helped pay for even his graduate school work. And so there were definitely some educational benefits that he got from being in the military. But, you know, I personally think it takes, I don't want that for our kids. You know, he's kind of the opposite. He says he would encourage them if they wanted to go into the military. I just, you know, it's really, I'm hoping that like your generation goes into it with your eyes open if you decide to go in the military, because before, especially with the National Guard, it didn't mean that you spent these long deployments. I mean, we've had some friends who, when the Iraq War started, they ended up spending, this was a Minnesota National Guard, they spent 2 years away from their families. And, you know, to me, the mission of the National Guard should not be working in foreign conflicts, but being here at home, helping with national disasters, helping with, you know, finding kids that are lost, you know, all those kinds of traditional roles. And I think that now, hopefully, you guys understand that when you do join the military, even if it is the National Guard, you have a pretty high likelihood of having to
get deployed.
And it was really, you know, really awful.
Okay.
Really awful in the family. You know, you don't, especially when I think you're non-active Army. I think if you were on a base, if you were active Army, you'd have all sorts of supports built in. But here I was, you know, 3-year-old, pregnant, and they say there's all sorts of supports, and you hear all that, but really,
no support.
You know, you're pretty much on your own. You have your family and you have your friends. I'm not really into military.
That's fine. Okay, so did this change your view about military a lot?
I think it did. I mean, I'm glad it's a volunteer service. I'm glad for that. I'm glad that we aren't at the point where people have to join that don't want to join. But it is a volunteer service, and so I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Hurt Locker.
I think I have.
I highly recommend it. I mean, I think a lot of the people that choose to go into the military have a certain mindset that they are, I don't know how to put this delicate. I mean, they're searching for, they enjoy adrenaline sometimes. And I think that can be, I'm not very articulate about this. I want to be supportive, but I do want people to realize that this is a job. They're choosing to do this. They're getting paid. They're getting compensated. I worry sometimes that we get into a little bit of hero worshiping, and you know, definitely people make sacrifices. But I do think it's important to think about, you know, I'm very thankful that we are able to welcome veterans back now in a way that's much different than the way they were welcomed back in Vietnam.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for the questions I have. Thank you very much, Ms.
You're welcome,
Idell.
Alejandro.
Thank you.